I would like to know how our contributors feel about man's inhumanity to man. Ini sudah dijamilkan. Not too many people know. Minister Alatas is one of the greatest statesmen.
Hello everyone, hope you guys are well in coping with this COVID-19 pandemic. Back here with Alfie Pimple, but today we are not discussing about Naruto or Eren because we are having a special guest here. Today we are welcoming Mr. Jamil Maidan Flores. Hello Mr. Jamil, how are you?
Well, I am fine. I am as fine as a man can be of my age and my situation.
How are you doing within this pandemic season, COVID-19? Are you feeling anxious about the COVID-19 or?
Well, just like everybody, we've got to be very, very careful. We have to adjust our daily lives to make sure that we do not get infected and to make sure that we don't infect other people in case we happen to be asymptomatic. Yeah.
So we have to be aware every time.
We have to be very conscious of that, and of course that is very limiting. I cannot go out as often as I want to, and I cannot meet the people that I usually meet in very close conversation. That's why my research on my memoir, in talking with the diplomats, the veteran diplomats of Indonesia with whom I worked during the time of Minister Alatas and Minister Wirayuda and Minister Martina Natalegawa. Well, I don't see them as often anymore because they themselves do not like going out. That's a big adjustment that I have to make, and that's a big limitation.
So, before we continue, we would like to announce first to our readers and our followers that our foreign review section has been updated into a new shiny section, and Mr. Jamil here will be our new managing editor. As a new part of our editorial team, he manages our English section of PinterPolitik.com called World, Region and Nation. So, let me brief you guys first regarding our guest here. Mr. Jamil here had been offering his service for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia as the speechwriter to the ministers for a quite long time. How many years, Mr. Jamil?
Well, from 1992 to middle 2015, I served under 5 presidents and 4 foreign ministers.
So it was about 20 years or more, 23 years, right?
Yes, I remained a consultant of the ministry, and then I had book writing projects with the ministry, and I was proposing another book writing project, but then the pandemic cancelled many of the things that I wanted.
So, Mr. Jamil, we'd like to ask you some questions. You know, there is a saying in Indonesia that says "tak kenal maka tak sayang," which basically means that we cannot like or love each other if we don't know each other first, right? My first question is, why PinterPolitik, Mr. Jamil? Why did you decide to join us and to manage our new English section called World, Region and Nation?
Well, I have a long-standing friendship with Mr. William Tangkilisan, the co-founder of PinterPolitik. And when he offered me the chance to serve as managing editor of the English content of PinterPolitik, I responded with great interest because there is a relationship of trust between the two of us. Then, also, well, that relationship of trust was built up when we traveled together in many places, many parts of the world, as members of the entourage of President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono. Now, second reason is that I look at the section called foreign views. And I saw immense possibilities. Okay, I saw an opportunity to create something new. To build something big and widely influential. And because English is the lingua franca of the world, it is also the official language of ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. That's the official language. And also because many Indonesians, like Ambassador Dino Jalal and even former Foreign Minister Martin Natalegawa, they were very fluent in the English language, and there are many Indonesians like them. So this is an opportunity. And third, I want to have the chance to be able to refresh the memory of the Indonesian people of the achievements of a generation of diplomats with whom I worked for about 3 decades. They have the wisdom born of experience which they can share and be helpful with the young generations, not only of diplomats but the young generation of Indonesians. So I would like to have their achievements recalled and discussed in relation to the situation that we are in today.
Before we continue talking about our new section, I have a question. Mr. Jamil, I heard you're not from around here. I heard you're originally from the Philippines, right? So what made you come to Indonesia? Would you like to share a little of your personal story?
Well, on a personal basis, it's like this. I came from a very poor family in North Luzon, in the Philippines. And so I have a direct experience of poverty and the problem of inequality and how to deal with poverty and inequality in a way that you keep your dignity. That is an experience. My academic background is philosophy. I studied scholastic philosophy in the University of Santo Tomas, particularly the philosophy of Saint Thomas Aquinas, which famously is known to be influenced by Aristotle, but not too many people know that a great influence on Saint Thomas Aquinas were two Muslim philosophers, Ibn Sina and Ibn Rushd. These were the two Muslim philosophers that influenced one of the greatest doctors of the Catholic Church. And after college, I worked for a while for several years in advertising and public relations. And then I joined the Philippine government and became a career executive service officer. That means to say, I am qualified to be undersecretary in any department in the Philippines. As such, I reorganized and ran the operations of the Department of Public Information in the Philippines. Then I walked out on the Marcos administration and became a journalist. And so for a while I worked for Radio Veritas because they were the ones who were not afraid to hire me. I edited a magazine called Farming Today, and then I accepted an assignment from the Manila Bulletin to cover the rebellion in Mindanao. So I stayed there until it was the time of the EDSA revolution. That was the time I came back to Manila and I covered the EDSA revolution for the Manila Bulletin and for the Panorama magazine. And for several years, I wrote the cover stories. Maybe 90% of the cover stories of Panorama magazine. And thus, I became familiar, I became friends even with the high officials of the administration of Korea Kino. It was at this point, when I was working for the Bulletin, that I got a call from the Indonesian embassy in Manila. And well, it took me some time before I could go there because I was writing the biography of the person who would become President Ramos at that time. When I came there, the first question he asked me is, "Would you like to meet our foreign minister?" I said yes, of course. But I could only travel during Christmas, December 25th. So I came to Indonesia on December 25th. December 27th, I met Ali Alatas, Minister Ali Alatas, and we agreed that I would become a presidential speechwriter and as well as the speechwriter of the foreign minister. Well, that was how I got to come to Jakarta, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Sorry, Mr. John, in what year was that? In what year did you join the...
Well, yes, I was called to... they started calling me in September. I got to the embassy only early December. I met Pa Alatas on December 27, 1991, and I officially started working in the ministry on January 20, 1992. That's it.
So you had been in a very close professional relationship with the former foreign minister, Mr. Ali Alatas, right? So what do you think of him? I know he was a very important person in Indonesia's foreign policy history, wasn't he?
In my book, or in my view, Minister Alatas is one of the greatest statesmen that Indonesia ever produced. He could have become UN Secretary General, but he let go of the chance because of a matter of delicacy, and I will tell that story some other time. It's an interesting story. Now, unlike other officials who would hide the fact that they have a speechwriter, he proclaimed that he has a speechwriter and a Filipino speechwriter, and he was proud of it. And he gave me all the credit that he thought that I deserved. I think he gave me more than I deserved. The joke between me and Minister Alatas was that we were the poor man's version of the writing partnership between John F. Kennedy and Ted Sorensen. And that is, that is the private joke. But he was more than a boss to me. He was a mentor. But I was not the only one he was mentoring. Whenever somebody came close to him and he had something to share, he always shared. He was always teaching people. And so people gravitated to him because of that. At the same time, he was also a benefactor and a very close family friend. We, Saturday afternoons, I would spend, because when he retired, I helped him write his memoir. And every Saturday afternoon, we would get together and work on the memoir. And the family, his family and my family would also get together on those occasions. Now, there is one thing that I am very proud of, and that is the entry into the Indonesian vocabulary of the word dijamilkan. It means jamilized. The story that's going around is that whenever a diplomat would go to Minister Alatas and have a piece of correspondence, a letter signed by him, he would first ask, "Ini sudah dijamilkan?" I said, "Has this been jamilized?" And if the diplomat said yes, iya Pak, sudah, then he would readily sign it. So the word dijamilkan spread around, and it is one of the things that I am very proud of. It spread not only in Kemlo, but in other departments of the government as well.
There was a quite funny story. You said that Mr. Alatas could be UN Secretary General. Why did not he take the chance to be the UN Secretary General?
It was around 1988, 89, something like that. There was the old Secretary General, the current Secretary General was already about to finish his tenure, and many members of the UN, many other countries wanted Pa Alatas to become the UN Secretary General. Okay. But in the end, he turned it down.
Any specific reason why he turned it down?
Well, okay, I will tell the story.
Okay.
When there was a move within the UN to elect Pa Alatas as UN Secretary General, it was almost sure that he would get it. Why? Because there would be no objection. He had a personal friendship with the foreign minister of the Soviet Union, Edward Shevardnadze. He had a friendship with the American Secretary of State, Baker, at that time, and he was very popular among the African, European, and Asian delegations.
So that's why he could be like the bridge between.
He could have been easily elected, but he had to get the permission of President Suharto. So a letter was drafted for him to sign by the drafter of the letter is Ambassador Widodo Macmur. Okay. At that time, he was a staff member in the New York mission of Indonesia. Okay. So the letter was sent asking for permission to Paharto. The reply came back signed by the Secretary Negara, Seneg Mordiono, and he said, "Okay, you may run for UN Secretary General." But the way it was said is that, you see, we are willing to make sacrifices. See, the sacrifice that Indonesia would make if he left the position of foreign minister and became UN Secretary General was cited in the same letter. Pa Alatas did not consider that the answer actually was yes. He considered that it was an implied no. So and that's the story.
An implicit no.
Yes, it is an implicit no and unstated at all. It's just that if you cite at all the sacrifices that Indonesia has to make, that means to say that you don't like it. Yeah. So he could have been, otherwise he could have been UN Secretary General.
So besides Mr. Alatas, you have been working with other foreign ministers, right?
Yes.
How was your experience working with those different personalities? How distinct are they in implementing Indonesia's foreign policy?
Well, the thing is this, I think I work under Alwi Shihab also, but he did not last very long. Let me put it in terms of legacy. Okay, during the time of Ali Alatas, Indonesia was the spokesman of the developing world, what they call the global south, and Indonesia stood before the global north, before the developed Western countries, and negotiated for the south on equal terms with them. That was the heyday of multilateralism in Indonesia, and Indonesia was highly respected because of that. Now, the plan of Minister Alatas, when it came to his legacy, was to write 4 books. One is on the issue of East Timor, where, apparently Indonesia lost the battle for the retention of East Timor, but it was only because diplomatically Alatas was winning. He was winning, and Indonesia was not directly negotiating with East Timor. It was negotiating with Portugal. Okay, and Portugal was about to agree to the position of Indonesia until, there was a new president, and he wanted a referendum at once. Okay, President Habibie wanted the referendum at once because he was confident that the people of East Timor would vote to remain with Indonesia, but there he was mistaken. Okay, so that was, but that was the first memoir of Alatas. The title of the book is A Pebble in the Shoe. I helped him, and he acknowledged it in the book that I helped him. Okay. Then after that, he wanted to write about the role of Indonesia in the Paris peace agreements that brought about peace in Cambodia. Because Cambodia was already two decades in a civil war, and because of this negotiation involving Indonesia as co-president and France as co-president, and 19 nations and one entity in all, because of that, peace came to Cambodia, and it became a modern constitutional monarchy. That was the second legacy of Alatas. The third legacy is the moral, the peace talks between the government of the Republic of the Philippines on one hand and the Moro National Liberation Front on the other, in which Indonesia was the mediator. Now, that process resulted in the signing of a final peace agreement between the two. Now, of course, there was a subsequent peace agreement between the government of the Philippines and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. But then at a certain point, the provisions of the two agreements were combined, and they became the basis of the Bangsamoro Organic Law. And the Bangsamoro Organic Law led to the formation of a Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao that is now going on in Mindanao. And it put an end to the Bangsamoro Rebellion in Mindanao. And then the fourth legacy of Alatas is the informal workshop on the potential conflict in the South China Sea. Okay. It took place for some time It took many years, but then it led into the signing of the so-called document, declaration on a code of conduct in the South China Sea. Okay, that was the declaration. That was the policy. But the code of conduct still had to be negotiated. Yeah, and until today, it is still being negotiated because China is stonewalling the process. Okay, so these are the four legacies of main legacies, because he had others, a lot of others. Now, Pa Hasan actually. Pa Alatas saw Pa Hasan as one of his probable successor before. And you see, the thing that Pa Hasan did was the democratization of ASEAN. Okay, why did he want ASEAN to be democratized, and through what means? The means was through the ASEAN Charter, in which the members are committed to democratic processes and to human rights. Then there was the establishment of the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights. Okay, so we have a commission on human rights, well, patterned after Indonesia. Now, why did Pa Hasan do that? Why? Because he felt that the democracy, he did it at a time when we were still talking about reformasi here in Jakarta. He did it at a time when he felt that Indonesian democracy was fragile and that it can only be strengthened if the immediate environment is also democratized. And that means ASEAN. Okay, so that to me is the main achievement, the main legacy of Pa Hasan. He said, well, in Indonesia we got our economics right, so we progress. But then we got our politics wrong, so the economy went down. Okay, so we've got to get our politics right, which means to say we must respect human rights. We must be committed and carry out, implement democracy. That was it.
So during Mr. Hasan's time, Indonesia saw other undemocratic ASEAN nations as a threat or have bad implication to Indonesia.
No,
like Myanmar or like those countries also have bad democratic record, right?
Yes. As I said, he started the democratization of ASEAN. That democratization remains unfinished. Okay, until today, because Pa Alatas himself, although retired, he was called upon to help in the drafting, in the writing of the documents, of the necessary documents. But of course, when finally it came to be decided upon by the whole body of ASEAN, the ideas of the democracy and human rights were watered down. Okay. But Hasan insisted that after 5 years there should be a review of the Commission on Human Rights. But it did not happen for lack of support. It used to be that the chief supporter of this democratization of ASEAN was the Philippines. Well, apparently the Philippines did not care so much anymore about human rights after several years after that. And then finally, in the case of Marty, I think he should be credited with the notion of the Indo-Pacific. You see, the Indo-Pacific is not a new thing. It was something that he espoused in beginning 2013. And I think the other Asian countries were already beginning to warm up to the idea, but then there was a change in administration, and they did not take up the notion of Indo-Pacific again until recent times. Okay, and it's a little bit different now. Then of course, Pak Marty prevented, in a real way, he prevented the disintegration of ASEAN through his shuttle diplomacy. You see, at that time, when Indonesia chaired ASEAN, okay, there was a battle between Thailand and Cambodia over a temple on the border, okay. But Pak Marty carried out shuttle diplomacy between the two sides so that the war would not escalate. So his efforts were recognized by the United Nations and by the International Court.
Indonesia was the mediator during those conflict, right, between Thailand and Cambodia.
Yeah.
So Indonesia became the mediator between those two nations.
Yes, in a way he went from one side to the other and talk with both sides. And then there was that time, I think in 2012, when ASEAN did not issue a chairman's statement. Apparently because Cambodia, the chairman then, did not want to infuriate or to bring about the anger of China, because they had to make a statement on the South China Sea. And Pak Marty, I remember, was always rallying the ASEAN countries to challenge China diplomatically in the South China Sea. But of course, that stopped when he was no longer foreign minister. So those are the legacies of the three major foreign ministers that I work with.
Since we discussed about our foreign minister, also have a question on our former vice foreign minister, Mr. Dino Patijalal. I heard a rumor that there was a tension between Mr. Dino and Mr. Andi Malarangeng, our former youth minister. Is it true? I also heard that their tension have some implication to their political party, Democrat. Is it also true?
Oh, yes, and well, they had sometimes they have a tense relationship, and of course I was a witness to. Sometimes they disagree because Pak Dino, Ambassador Dino Jalal, has a rather liberal point of view of things, while Andi Malarangeng is conservative and very, very nationalistic. So sometimes there is a clash of opinions, but Pak Dino, the Ambassador Dino Jalal, represented the liberal view of Indonesia, looking at the world, and the world looking at Indonesia, while Andi Malarangeng represented a point of view that looked at Indonesia alone. So there was tension between the two of them because of that.
So okay, I would like to ask questions about you. So you have been writing books and articles on foreign policy and socio-political issues. We know those are big contributions to the society, right? Are those part of your motivation to manage our news section? Is it your motivation is to share your knowledge on political issues to the society?
Well, yes, I do have my views, but the important thing also is to have a variety of views on a variety of issues. That is why, maybe I'm anticipating a question of yours. That is the reason that I changed the name. That I suggested a change in name. Because when you say foreign views and foreign liaison, these are very limited.
Yes.
Yes, because you may be talking about only the views of foreigners or the interaction between a foreigner and Indonesian. That is a very limited thing. So what I want to be written about, what I want to be communicated, is what is happening to all humankind, and to be able to cover all that, you have to say world, region, and nation. That covers everything, and that covers all the issues, all the ideas, all the actions that are taking place within among all human beings.
So it's not only foreigners who can contribute to the new section, so everyone can contribute to it.
Yes, everyone. We want a variety of contributors.
Could you tell us more about our contributors?
Well, let me tell you what I would like to happen. Yes, I would like, first of all, to have a livelier format. We want a format that can compare in treatment with the latest media practice in various parts of the world. We want to engage the participation of a diversity of contributors, not only the famous, but also the unknown, not only the old and wise and experienced, but also the young and fresh and bold. We want contributors from all professions, from all disciplines, from all persuasions, so that we can understand what is going on, because the nature of truth is not something that is held by one person alone. Truth is something that is embraced by many people.
So truth and information is for everyone to have, right? So everyone has rights to have the truth.
Yes, I want also to know about how they cope with the challenges of life, not only the pandemic, but of life itself, the problem, the question of existence. So I would like the basic philosophical questions. I would like to know how our contributors feel about man's inhumanity to man, because usually it takes the form of colonialism. It takes the form of persecution of minorities. Okay, and what do our contributors feel about that? About colonization, political, economic, and cultural colonization, the marginalization of the poor, the problem of equality, where the rich keep getting richer and getting more powerful, while the poor becomes poorer. What are the remedies that are available to us? So maybe there will be some ideas that will come out, and maybe we can espouse those ideas. So in short, I would like our readers to know the ways by which we can make a better world, and that is in the constitutional mandate of Indonesia, but it should apply to not only to Indonesians, but to all humankind. That we should have a better world of social justice, in which everybody can live in security and in prosperity, shared prosperity.
It was very inspirational. Okay, I guess that's all the questions, I guess. Okay, thank you, Mr. Jamil. However, for our time is limited, this is the part when we should say goodbye to our viewers. I know you guys might not be patient to see what our new section is, so I guess you better go check to our website yourself and see the wonders yourself. And that was a great talk with you, Mr. Jamil. Thanks to you guys for watching our interview, and see you next time. Don't forget to have a good day and always be precautious about the pandemic, because the pandemic isn't over yet. Thank you guys.